Hello, everybody. I'm Valerie Clay, and I'm here to speak to you today about Mercy Otis Warren in our Women of the American Revolution series. Now, Mercy Otis Warren was born in 1728 in Barnstable, Massachusetts. She came from a prosperous Cape Cod family. Her brother was James Otis, very famous revolutionary, especially in the early period around the time of the Stamp Act as well as the Tea Act, coercive acts, but mainly around the time of the Stamp Act. Is a very vocal revolutionary. Mercy, however, she had no formal education. Now, she did learn how to read and write. However, she was tutored with her brothers. So when the tutor would come to school her brothers, she would participate. And she was allowed to do this. The only thing she was not allowed to participate in as a woman was Greek and Latin. So she was not allowed to learn those two languages, but everything else she very much participated in with her brothers. She was married to James Warren, who was a member of the Massachusetts legislature. Through this marriage and through James's connections, Mercy became very well acquainted with revolutionary leaders. And in so, she wrote letters to Abigail and John Adams. She wrote to George Washington, Martha Washington, Thomas Jefferson. She wrote to Sam Adams, among others. She was a prolific letter writer and was in contact with many, many, many founding fathers and revolutionaries at the time. She gave birth to 5 boys, 5 children, and she raised them at home. She was very proud to be a mother, and she enjoyed being a mother and a wife. But she was still very much a political activist. Her brother James was attacked in September of 1769. Now, he had been very open about his feelings regarding Parliament and the various acts that they had passed. And he was a very, very good lawyer, and he made an argument in the writs of assistance case for comprehensive colonial rights. Well, this upset some people. He was walking down the street in Boston, and he was attacked by a political enemy as well as an employee of the British Crown, a customs commissioner by the name of John Robinson, and he was beaten severely with a cane. So badly, in fact, that word came to Mercy that her brother had been killed, and it was terrible for her. She was absolutely terrified, angry, hurt, upset, and then she apparently finds out that he was in fact not dead and just unfortunately very severely hurt. So she writes a letter, and I feel that this letter really reminds us as historians that while we talk about these very large ideas, the Stamp Act, the coercive acts, we talk about the Declaration of Independence, the writs of assistance, the committees for correspondence, really, these were everyday people. These were people, they had lives, they had children, they had husbands, they had mothers and fathers, and imagine if your family were embroiled in things like this. People got hurt, people were killed. This was a time of great upheaval within the personal lives of individuals. And she writes a letter to her brother after she finds out that he is okay, and it really, I believe, shows the emotion of the period. She writes, "Dear brother, you know not what I have suffered for you within the last 24 hours. I saw you fallen, slain by the hands of merciless men. I saw your wife a widow, your children orphans, your friends weeping around you, and your country in tears for the man who had sacrificed interest, health, and peace. But my distress was this evening alleviated by hearing that your life is now not despaired of. I wish to know every circumstance of the guilty affair. Is it possible that we have men among us under the guise of officers of the crown who have become open assassins? Have they, with a band of ruffians at the heels, attacked a gentleman alone and unarmed with a design to take away his life? Thus it is reported. And are these the conservators of peace?" Think about living in a world where if you speak out against your government, you could be attacked walking down the street. This is Excuse me, my cats are playing. I apologize. They just want to say hello. Just imagine what that would have been like. And I think sometimes we forget about that as students of history. So I wanted to share that with you because I think she does a very nice job showing how emotional this time was, but at the same time, the anger that people felt. Now, as I said, her letters show emotion of the time. And so she decides to become more politically active. She hosts meetings in her home thanks to the connections of her husband. And these meetings lead to the Committees of Correspondence in Boston. She was a talented writer. She wrote throughout the Revolutionary period under a pen name. She did not publish under her own name until 1790, but she wrote plays, satires, and as well as prose drama. She used her pen to engage in politics, but she was still very much a devoted wife and mother. She became an anti-federalist after the Revolution. She felt that a limited federal government would be served best in the United States. And she even wrote in 1788 observations on the new Constitution. It was kind of a scathing report on the Constitution and how she felt as though it was too centralized. The government was too centralized and it gave the government way too much strength. Therefore, she becomes a champion of the Bill of Rights. And as we all know, the Bill of Rights are very much a part of our Constitution. So we not only have individuals like Madison to thank, but we have people such as Mercy Otis Warren to thank as well. She very much was a prolific writer, and she helped to kind of really turn people towards the need for this Bill of Rights. Her legacy is an important one. She wrote a 3-volume history of the American Revolution called The History of the Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution. This was in 1805. This history focused much more on the focused much more on the people of the revolution and not so much the military focus. She wanted to look at the individuals that were involved. Unfortunately, in doing so, this created a rift with her good friends, the Adamses, both John and Abigail. She was less than flattering in her analysis of John in some of the things that he took upon himself. And Abigail was very angry, and both John and Abigail Adams exchanged letters with Mercy, and eventually they severed their friendship. However, that did not stop Mercy Otis Warren. She continued to write. She felt as though femininity actually qualified her as a historian. As a historian myself and a woman, I found that interesting. She said that women, at the time, women were not engaged in politics in the same way men were, that they had a much more, because they were at home, because they were taking care of the children, they had a better chance of sitting back and observing. And that's what history is about. She believed that through the domesticity of women, that they had a better chance of observing in a manner that was not biased. And I kind of agree with what she had to say there. I do believe that. She felt as though she was not in the middle of the fight, so she was able to sit back and really watch people and how they interacted. What's important for her is that she paved the way for women writers and activists. She is a wonderful person to read about, admire. She has a great history. She was a very strong, independent woman, and thankfully we have her as one of our female revolutionaries. I appreciate your time. I know I've gone a little long, but she's a great person, and I hope that you enjoyed this. And again, I apologize for the kitty cats, but I think they wanted to say hello. So have a great day, and I enjoy seeing everybody else's video. Thanks.